Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in a Half Shell, Turtle Power, they're the world's most fearsome fighting team. We're really hip. Leonardo leads, Donatello does machines. Raphael is 7 foot cool. Michelangelo is a party dude. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Welcome, Turtles in a Half Shell, Turtle Power. Welcome, guys, to the Mr. Movie Dr. Crave Entertainment Network show. This one, we're talking about Turtle Power. I'm Steve.
And I'm Jay.
And today we're talking about the Ninja Turtles. And we just watched a documentary called The Toys That Made Us. And one of their first episodes was on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So let's just start by saying what was our thoughts on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And kind of discuss kind of where we saw it and kind of how it became what it is and everything. Jay?
Yeah, so I enjoyed the Turtles. I don't know if I was into the Turtles as much as you were growing up, Steve, but I really love just the amount of like fun and action and humor was in the series. I guess first getting exposed to them from like the animated show.
Yeah.
I guess, Steve, what was your first exposures to the Turtles?
Well, I grew up on the animated show. I think, the animated show came out in 1987. So I kind of watched that show a lot. I kind of, I still have the DVDs as well. So, like, I liked how the, so I kind of grew up on that. And then, we'll kind of talk about the movies a little bit later, but for the show, it was kind of our sort of, kind of what we grew up on.
Right.
I think the Turtles were sort of, a part of our childhood. I had the action figures. I had the sewer lines and that kind of thing. And, I have, there's posters of Ninja Turtles I still have. I used to have on my wall, but they're gone now. I'm going to put them up someday. But
I think you also didn't you have it for the Nintendo game or something?
Yes, actually we did. It was like the Nintendo game, exactly. I think they had a Nintendo game, they had a Super Nintendo game as well. And I think that was the same game we played at the...
the theater in
Nashville. Audience, what we did for a 25th anniversary, we went to a theater in Nashville and saw the 35mm, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, which we will get to in a bit. But we're just kind of talking about sort of how we got into Turtles and that kind of thing. So Jay, tell me, what kind of Turtles, like, were you kind of a fan, semi-fan, or...
I would say semi-fan, but it's not because I didn't like the Turtles. I thought they were fun. I enjoyed the action and everything about them. I don't know. I guess maybe I was just born a little bit later than you.
Right. Yeah, I can understand that. It was... I mean, so we'll kind of start talking, so the animated show, apparently, we're going to talk about this in the documentary. At the time, the Turtles all wore red bandanas. They weren't really personal. They didn't have blue, orange, purple, or they just had red in the comic books. And I think in the comics, there is sort of like a Daredevil connection where I think the chemicals was the ooze that knocked out, because the ooze was purple in the original comic book. And apparently the ooze made him blind. So Daredevil and the Turtles have sort of I've heard, I don't know if that's true. I mean, they didn't really say it in the documentary. But I think there's sort of I've read somewhere. Fan theory or something. Right. So Jay, what was, and I kind of, the animated show, I mean, it was sort of, I mean, it's corny, like now you're looking at it, it's corny, but I think, it's sort of, I think you kind of grew up on it, so it does sort of have that thing, have that sort of nostalgia, but you love what it is, sort of thing.
Right.
And I like how in the Turtle, we kind of go through, like, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are sort of party animal, like, they have their personality, they had the Technodrome, Shredder, who's voiced by Uncle Phil, James Avery, rest in peace. there was sort of like, and you remember Krang or Shredder.
Actually, I think Krang is my
favorite villain.
I think character out of the whole Turtles. Like, I know that you had a bunch of action figures. And
I think I still do somewhere.
Yeah.
We had the toy set. I never had the turtle van though.
Right.
That was one of the things. I had like a turtle hover thing or something.
Right. So I actually only owned one toy from the Turtles, and it was a Krang.
Oh, you should have brought it over. I think you might have.
I think I still have it.
We're gonna kind of get to this, but that was sort of the thing with the Turtles, and like, let's talk about the movies before we go into sort of what was your first thought on? Let's kind of go through the first movie.
Yeah, I remember seeing the.
Before I know we saw it on the big screen.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, but when you saw it the first time, I was kind of surprised how dark it was.
Yeah, I remember being little and sort of, I don't know, traumatized is not right. We just sort of like
you're kind of like, wait a minute,
about like when they were sort of torturing
Splinter, and you're just like, oh my gosh, they're torturing, and he just backed him and that kind of thing. But we went and saw it on the big screen a couple of years ago at like a theater for like midnight screening. And after seeing it on the big screen, I have more, I like it a little bit more. It's gotten a little bit. I'm 2 was always sort of my favorite one just because it hit me at that right age. And Vanilla Ice, go Ninja, go, kind of thing was sort of big back in the day. I think apparently with the first one was so violent at the time. It's probably tamed by today's standards with Marvel and DC and stuff like that. But with these movies, it was so violent that the second one, they were, because of parent complaints, and I think I know we talk Honest Trailer. I watch Honest Trailers. They kind of said, due to stupid parents' complaints, they could never use their weapons. So, like, if you remember, there's combat cold cuts, and he's got like wiener sausages on the thing.
Right.
And like it was a little bit goofier. They had the Donatello was sort of sees a clown and pushes it, and then sort of does this thing because in the Turtles 2. They kind of break into a mall, like these thieves break into a mall, and they find them and just start fighting them. But I've watched it 100 times. But the first time I watched it, I never realized they didn't use their weapons until that on this trailer.
Yeah, I feel like they really amped up the humor, and so like the fight scenes became a lot more more of a like physical comedy, like like the Jackie Chan type vibes where they're using improvising surroundings and stuff.
Yeah, and I think when comics were a lot darker. When we watched the documentary, it was they killed.
Right.
And I think if you watch the animated show, literally calls the Foot Clan robots. Because they're like, we can't do violence. And then, 93 shows up and the Power Rangers are blowing villains up and hitting putties and stuff like that. But, to Turtles, and, let's kind of go through now that we've sort of told you kind of where we stand with the Turtles. We just watched a documentary called The Toys That Made Us. And so we're going to kind of talk about that right now. And so The Toys That Made Us, I was kind of surprised that it was just Eastman and Laird were just 2 guys in an apartment.
Yeah, it's such a small origin story.
Yeah.
Something that's so ginormous.
Not enormous now. You look at, it kind of brings me back to how, we're podcasting right now and how podcasting is sort of, people just sort of have, found stuff they want to talk about and it's gotten so big. But, but that's their origin, where they were just sitting around and just drawing turtles, and apparently like they still drew the tails. Remember in the documentary they drew the tails, and they were worried because it was too much of a represented a penis or something.
Right. Yeah. From when you
or a phallic symbol, excuse me.
Right.
But I wrote some notes. The bandanas were originally red in the comics.
Okay.
And then what happened was when they brought it to the TV series, they gave them personalities, and like the purple one was Donatello, blue was Leonardo, red was Raphael, and orange was Michelangelo.
Right. Otherwise, you can't really tell them.
Tell them apart, exactly. And I think even in the video, so I think they had a Super Nintendo game where it was like Raphael's, they still had Raphael's bandana or something.
Okay.
Let's see. They took off the tails for the TV series. I think I just mentioned that. And they spent all their money on the TV show and not much for merchandise.
Yeah, I think they were saying didn't want to put their money into merchandise until they knew they had something that would sell products.
Which was smart. I mean, and you kind of watch it now and you're like going, we're watching this documentary, we're like going, oh shit, our entire childhood was just a crumb. It kind of reminds you of that scene in Christmas Story where he gets he's going to help little orphan Annie. Do you remember?
Oh, he gets a little decoder.
He gets
like
the decoder, and it says, "Be sure to drink your Ovaltine." He's like, "Son of a bitch, a crummy commercial." Oh,
and but it's a commercial, Steve.
And it was a commercial. But I think the thing is that we take, I think it's the same thing with comic books. I think because with comics, I believe comics are our modern mythology. That's become our modern mythology. And, and I think the reason why you reboot stuff is everybody's comic is their first comic. Someone's first, so they'll have to kind of do the origin 600 times just because there's, people that go, I don't know anything about Batman or something. But let's get back to the Turtles. They had to, let's see, the creators of the, let's talk about the toys. I kind of made some notes, but the action figures in June of 1988 sold like crazy.
Okay.
So the show came out in 87, so that was, a big time. And that was the year I was born, so I'm like, so Turtles kind of, and I think that's the reason why I'm such a fan of Turtles now, is that kind of thing.
Yeah, you're sort of like intertwined from birth a bit.
Yeah, I mean, you grow up on something, and that's the kind of thing. I think the toys made over like $1 million, and the creators made so much money off of the toys as well.
Right. Yeah.
So what was your thoughts on kind of the I feel, looking at the, kind of going back to the films, we talked about 2 and we talked about 1, and what was your thoughts on 3? Do you feel like 3 was just so rushed and it was just like, just put them in Japan, don't give them another character kind of thing?
Gosh, I guess, to be honest, I don't know if I even remember 3. I know I've seen it.
It was the one where they go to Japan. It's
since I was a kid.
But you can tell the second one probably you get more memory from the first 2 than the third one.
Yeah.
And I feel like, and I was kind of surprised that they were worried that the creation of a movie would ruin their brand. The creators thought that.
Yeah, I think they were talking about just the difference in tone between the how dark the first movie was, and then the TV show there would be like a clash and wouldn't.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like that was sort of, yeah, you're kind of right, and I think, and it was kind of surprising that Eastman and Laird had a falling out, and they kind of reconsidered everything in this document, or reunited, yeah. Let's see. Jim Henson, the Muppets guy, created the turtle suits. And do you think they still hold up to this day?
I think so.
I do too.
Yeah.
I think, I feel like the first one, the heads were a little bit big. Right. I mean, each of them, I think they kind of, the eyes in the third one were very more expressive. The second one, because you could kind of tell that it wasn't quite, it was kind of in the middle between, expressive and stuff. Let's see. then at the time when this movie came out, the first film, it was like the biggest biggest grossing of an independent film ever at the time,
to hear that too,
which was kind of surprising at the time, and and you kind of think, and I think that's why, and so one of the reasons why I think the Turtles lasts for so long is that people they talked about in the documentary, kids that grew up on Ninja Turtles have kids of their own, and they're kind of giving them into it, whether it's the Nickelodeon show. And we'll get to the Michael Bay. You want to now? Let's talk about the kind of briefly TMNT. Did you ever watch the animated movie?
Is that one of the more recent ones?
That came out in 2007.
No, I haven't seen any.
I watched it, and what I liked about but it was good because they kind of separated everybody, all the turtles. They separated the turtles into like different, Michelangelo is a clown doing some stuff. Leonardo is off looking for somebody. Raph is a vigilante. Donatello is working at a computer thing, and then they have to bring them all back together. The Shredder's not in it. It's a different villain. And April O'Neil is in it. She's actually voiced by Sarah Michelle Gellar. And Casey Jones was voiced by a then unknown Captain America, but Johnny Storm himself, as Chris Evans. So
okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's you kind of see the things, and I feel like the toys, or not the toys, but I feel like the movies, I still like. The first two, the 90s films still hold a place in my heart, Right. And I feel like, so I still have something about it, but but then I feel like Michael Bay, who produced the Ninja Turtles, did the first Ninja Turtles with Megan Fox. Did you see that movie at all?
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay, so I'll go through it, because I saw it, and they didn't take the love. I think once they made the second one, Out of the Shadows, they did a decent job, but it was kind of dark. The turtles were too big. They were aliens.
Oh, they were aliens?
That's what Michael Bay said they were. But in the movie, he says, so they actually make fun of it and said, so they are mutants, so are they aliens? He's like, no, and April O'Neil said, no, that's stupid. They're mutants, but I do have to say, the characters are like, Leonardo is, the leader, Donatello does, there's that still core thing is still there. But once they made the sequel, I think it's directed by a new director, and he brought, I think it was what fans wanted, but it wasn't quite what fans wanted. It was sort of like they were kind of happy for what they got, but I think they weren't satisfied. Okay. And I liked the second one. They brought Bebop and Rocksteady.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And
I remember being disappointed in the second one where they had to
like Toka and Razor.
Yeah, they're sort of like these second rate.
Yeah, well, and they probably didn't have the rights at all, at the time or something. But I feel like the second one was better. I like how the second one worked. The Out of the Shadows worked a little bit better than the Ninja Turtles, the first one.
Okay. Well, out of all the movies, which one is your...
The second one, Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze.
Okay. Just
because I think it hit me at the right time.
Right.
I think it's the same thing. I think it's the same thing when you watch a movie. When you get a certain age, there's that movie you can keep watching 400 times to the point someone could say, "This is the stupid." You need to find another movie to watch, kind of thing. Right. And part of it is it was at my grandmother's house, kind of thing. But and then let's talk about the next mutation. If you remember that show, they kind of mentioned it on the.
Yeah, they mentioned it in the Toys That Made Us documentary, and then actually
I've watched it too.
Okay. I don't think I ever watched it.
So
I didn't really
apparently they didn't have Shredder. They had like a creature called Dragon or Dracone or something like that, and because I think it's actually was on Netflix for a while, and it lasted one season. So it was. I've got friends that do a podcast called Cancel Too Soon, so it's probably one of those shows that they'll cover one day. And there's no April O'Neil, but they brought a female turtle, and let's talk. And in the documentary, they were like kind of surprised that they were gonna do a female turtle.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's really what killed it. I don't know. To me, like a lot of the turtles, for me, I don't know. I love the villain. So like hearing they got rid of Shredder, and like I don't know, like why would you?
Well, Shredder's such a villain.
Like
such an iconic villain. You kind of put Green Goblin with Spider-Man, Joker with Batman, Shredder with the Turtles.
And then or my favorite Krang, just sort of like
just,
just his voice and such, I don't know.
So I mean I kind of feel like, and that's the thing, I feel like I thought it was alright. They brought Venus de Milo, which I was like, as she worked alright. They brought, I think Power Rangers in Space was going on at the same time.
Okay.
Which was, I think it was like after Zeo, but after Turbo. And it was like before Lost Galaxy. Okay, I'm getting into Power Rangers, but they brought, and then there's like a specific episode where they brought the Power Rangers and the Ninja Turtles together. And so it was, I'd never watched that episode, but there's part of me that if I was 6, 8, 9, somewhere around there, I'd be like, this is the greatest comment, this is my Avengers or something.
Right.
But what was, I mean, did you let's what now did you ever watch any of the animated shows after like the 2007 show? I've watched a couple episodes of that.
No, I think I only watched the stuff like the original stuff.
I watched the Turtles. Now I didn't watch the Nickelodeon one. Nickelodeon one was a lot more fun.
Okay.
They did another show called The Ninja Turtles, which was on Fox, and it was animated. And there was actually an episode that I've read that they brought back the original animated show. They had like a crossover event with like the original animated from the 80s and this 2007 one, and they fought Shredder. They fought somebody. I haven't seen it, but like I saw like a thing that says in 2007 they brought this thing,
Right.
And then I watched they've done Rise of the Ninja. Nickelodeon bought them, and I think that's the reason why they brought the Ninja Turtles Michael Bay films. And they did 2 shows. They did a CGI one, which was fun, right. And then they brought one called The Rise of the Ninja Turtles.
I think I remember that from the doc. It was like sort of like before, I guess, pre-teenagers.
Yeah.
So they're not having like mastered their
skills yet, but the animation wasn't bad.
Okay.
But and I think the Turtles can, you can't believe that the Turtles have lasted this long.
Well, I think it's, turtles lived for a long time, so they're probably teenagers
forever. Yeah. Well, I could see, but like the brand itself,
right?
You kind of, I listened to, the Cancel Too Soon podcast, and they did a video on Bucky O'Hare, which was a comic book that was coming out of DC Comics, and they did a TV show that only lasted 1 season, and it didn't last that long, but they had a video game, and they talk about the video game and stuff, but that was sort of the thing. They had, I think they had a rabbit in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated show called Wasaki Vojimbo. I don't know.
I don't remember.
They talk about in the documentary, they said they had like a alligator villain. They had all these, I think they were trying to get
was the upchuck, something like just
upchuck, and just and you're kind of like going, what were they thinking? kind of thing. But let's see. So after kind of our, I think we're hitting about 30 minutes. What? Let's kind of. Do you want to wrap this up, or do you have any other things you want to discuss?
I guess we haven't asked who was your favorite turtle.
Always liked Michelangelo. He was so cool at the time. Leonardo, I think Michelangelo was just sort of like the guy you want to hang out with.
Right.
Leonardo, I feel like is somebody I think you always wanted to look up to. Raphael just had attitude, and Donatello was a nerd. Gotcha. What about you, Jack? Did you have a...
I was sort of boring, where I just like Leonardo, I think, just because he had the swords.
Yeah, the sword.
I think I liked them just because more based on the weapons they had.
Well, and I feel like with the swords and the nunchucks, and I like in the going back to the movie. Remember where like the Foot Clan crashes April O'Neil's apartment, and Michelangelo, the one of the Foot Clans is a nunchuck, and he's like, "Fellow chucker, eh?"
Yeah.
And he does like, whoo, 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 and then nunchucks. He does like, or Michelangelo does nunchucks. The Foot Clan member does nunchucks, and then the Michelangelo can twirl the nunchucks on his finger, and he's like, keep practicing. And then another thing I want to mention is the guy that played Michelangelo, which we met, which I met at Comic-Con, at the Knoxville Comic-Con. He was the pizza delivery guy in the beginning of the movie. Remember where he's walking and he's looking for 22 and an 8? And the guy, and then they're looking up and they're talking about how Splinter is like gonna leave him, and he's like $2 off or $5 off, and he's like, you're standing on it, dude, and he's just slip it down here, and he gets a card and he looks at the bill and he's like, this is a 10, the tab was 15. He's like, you're 2 minutes late, dude, or like 10 minutes late, dude. Why? And he says, come on, I couldn't find the place. And he says, wise man says, forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for late pizza. But, and that was sort of after watching the movie again in theaters, I appreciated the first Turtles a little bit more than I did, watching it on video.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But let's talk about Casey Jones. What do you think of Casey Jones in the movies?
I liked him. He's sort of, I don't know, like vigilante.
I watched. He's a lot better than Arrow in Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows, because he's a police detective. He's like, I'm gonna make detective, and he just like, and the Nostalgia Critic reviewed it, and I kind of like, I listened to his thing, and he's like going, yeah, he whines a little bit too much, or Casey Jones whines a little bit too much, and they talked about how in the comics, and I think in the animated series, he was a badass vigilante kind of thing. So, and that's what I kind of liked about, Casey Jones, and and he's like, he and Raph at the, I think, did we already mention this? He and Raph.
Get like a scuffle.
Okay. Yeah, did they get in the scuffle? Did we mention that already?
I can't remember.
Oh, okay. Well, do you want to wrap this up?
Yeah, I guess we've got your favorite turtle. What was your favorite villain? Just.
I like Shredder.
Shredder.
The problem is like with Bebop and Rocksteady, and I kind of like them in the new movie. Because they were a little bit kind of cool. I mean, not cool, but sort of, they had a little bit of an attitude versus how they were you were sort of dumb in the animated show.
Yeah.
I mean, a little bit kind of like, boss, what are we gonna do? And he's like, the same thing we do every time. We need to conquer the turtles,
Right.
And in this one, in the movie, in the movie, the second movie of the live action, the new live action ones, they had a little bit of character to them. It wasn't great, but they at least tried.
Okay.
So Anyway, I'm glad you guys enjoyed this. Party on.
Eat some pizza.
Eat some pizza. Have a good one. Bye. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe if you'd like to.